Welcome to another episode of the Ticklish. Hey, don't do that. The Ticklish Travel. Welcome to another episode of the Ticklish Traveler and his travel tales. Don't do that. Oh, che faccia, everybody. Fruit trees in Europe. There's plenty of them. Well, riding around them little dirt roads, I got a little bit bored of them, and I went out a different way, and even more of a different way, and I usually did the other way. Okay, so I saw me peach trees. The bad news was there was a wire fence around them. So I grabbed just one. I didn't have my shirt on. I didn't have any shoes on. And I was on one of them little fold up bikes in the middle of summer on a dirt road in Europe. And oh, brother, was that sweet. I looked down, my whole stomach was full of juice. Well, I had to get me another peach. And by the way, it was a white peach, and it was on some property. I couldn't even see where the front door of the house was. And the house was off in a distance, way in a distance. And there was no other houses anywhere around, nothing. There was just open fields. You could see way, way far away there'd be a farmhouse. Well, I got a couple of peaches, scratched my arm up a little bit, but it was worth it. And I was going back looking around to see if I could find any. Nobody ever appeared, and there was maybe, I'm going to say, 6 white peach trees and some other trees on the other clump of this yard that was fenced in. And it had a couple old trucks and I don't know, like some kind of farm equipment over there, but everything looked abandoned. I don't know, like somewhere's out of Green Acres or something. So I got a whole bunch of peaches, and there was watermelon in a field down the ways. And another field, there were some carrots about the size of anybody's thumb, and some red peppers. And I had a good time picking that fruit. And one particular morning, I was riding around a big lake, and I saw a pear, a big, giant, light red pear. Man, I climbed up this fence, and I was like Buster Keaton. I was up there falling down. I got up and I fell down again, and I got it. I got that pear, and I sat on that lake for 1 hour and ate that pear. And that's all I ate that morning. And it was filling and tasty and good. Another time on a dirt road in Europe, saw me fig tree. It was the only fig tree I had seen in that whole area. Well, I was pulling the limbs down and crawling underneath it. One of the locals come out. He didn't have a shirt on. He was like Danny DeVito, just a little guy and chubby. And he went back in the house and said, "Uh-oh, there he comes." He had a long stick with him. I figured, man, this guy was going to swat me a good one. Well, I had 3 figs that I had already eaten. What'd that old local guy do with his shirt off and the big belly and the bald head? He was smiling at me and tapping me on the shoulder, and he had a hook on the end of that stick, and he was pulling the limbs down for me. Oh boy, I had a good time. And then his wife came out, and she was smiling with no teeth, and she was real friendly. They brought me a little drink. Oh man, I had so much fun picking fruit and them little European villages. Oh, and that little bald Danny DeVito guy that helped me get them figs. I got a whole bag full. I probably had 20 figs, and they were big size figs. A couple days later, I brought that gentleman a couple of giant candy bars that had that little goo inside of it, that caramel and all that. And him and his wife had me in a little, oh, I'd say it was like a little, anyway, it was a little dumpy place. And they had a little garden in the back, and they're showing me around. They take you arm in arm, and they're showing you, everything they're real happy about, sharing all their garden with you. And I had a good time sharing everybody's garden over there in Europe. And I hope you enjoyed this. Okay. Bon appetit. Do Virginia. Dobro večer. Good evening, everybody. Recalling my memory from years ago on a train going to Crna Gora Granica, which means the Montenegro border. It was a dark, cold, scary Yugoslavian night. The train. We stop at the border, and it was snow. Suddenly, there's just really big snowflakes like Oreo cookies. And man, they tasted good. So I went to get off the train, and this little bitty guy in my compartment, it was just me and him. He grabs me from the back and says, he says, don't go outside. It'll cost you $10 every footstep they see in the snow. I says, oh, I don't have this much. And he's laughing with the three teeth. I says, yeah, he said, it's a joke. Okay, this is a good joke. Oh, so we listened to all the heavy voices hollering at one another outside as the Serbians got off and the Montenegrins got on. Well, this little guy in my compartment sat down, and I sat down, and he looked like Eddie Higgins. This little guy, on the PI Magnum show, we were sitting there just looking out the window at the snow, and these two big giant guys come on with these big jackets. These guys were 6'10", and they looked mean. What to die me? The guy saw little Higgins' water bottle, and he says, give me. And he grabbed it, and he drank the guy's water halfway and put it back. And he went to the next compartment, and he was going to eat cookie. And out of nowhere come 2 7'3" cops. And these guys were bigger than the 6'10" guys. So they chased those 6'10" guys right off the train. And this guy, Higgins, his eyes got big as cupcakes, man. And he was looking at me, his mouth was open. I was shrugging, throwing my hand up in the air. And he took his water that 6'10" guy drank, and he just checked it out the window and opened another one. He says, diseases. He didn't know. I don't know. Those guys could have been 12 years old. I don't know. It's pretty scary sometimes in the winter in a 7-foot Montenegro, which is second highest people in the world after Dutch. But they're mean and scary. So if you go to Montenegro, be careful in a snowstorm. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Over done, everybody. Well, I'm going to go back to Hungary. It was many years ago, and I had to leave for the simple reason I was there too long. I was horsing around with Fritzy and Attila and all these guys, and I lost track of time, so I had to skedaddle out of Hungary, so I had to go somewhere. I got on one of these sites that welcomes travelers, and I wrote every country in Europe except for one, and that was Albania. I figured I didn't even want to try because I got a Serbian name. So, anybody want to take a guess at the 2 countries which welcome me? If anybody guessed Poland and Slovenia. They were correct. Well, knowing my geography, not like most Americans, I chose Slovenia because I know Slovenia is a border country with Hungary. So I got on a train, a very old train. It looked like it was from 1800s. And the old guy with the boots, and he had the bag of potatoes over his shoulder. And me and him were the only ones on the train. Oh no, that was when I left. Anyway, I got off the train, and the girl that welcomed me into Slovenia, she wanted to know what I look like. And I said, I look like somebody in the background of an old Bible movie. She says, okay, okay. So she picked me up, took me to her place, and her son came out. He was in his early 20s, and this little freckly lady with red hair, she looked like a little hippie from Woodstock, the original Woodstock. Anyway, she starts cooking dinner, and the kid, her son, sits down at the table with me. These people I had just met, and he opens up a laptop, and I go, "Oh no, here we go!" The young kid, and he's showing me some video of these people jumping out of airplanes. He says, "That one's me." Hey, all right, now we're talking. So takes me in the bedroom, and he shows me the parachute and how it works and opens up. And he was real interesting, and I liked the kid until he told me he was going to take me to climb that mountain at 4 o'clock in the morning. I says, the only thing I'm going to do at 4 o'clock in the morning is dream about Preganitzas. Preganitzas is an old Serbian pastry. I don't even know if they use that word anymore. Anyway, we had a good time, me and this little freckly lady with red hair and her son. And all of a sudden, the door knocked. It was one of her friends, and he comes in and he's acting like a Apache, and he's got a corn dog taped to his head, and he's running around. He's half drunk, half naked, and he starts throwing rice up in the air. It was kind of festive time. We all sat around. Yeah, it was funny. So we all sat around. We had supper together. These hosts and mine, and I had one beer with them, and the rest of them, they were all kind of getting sloshed. So they were all sloshed on booze. So what happened was I went to lay down, and the bed broke. They all ran in. They couldn't believe it. I was the only one that wasn't drunk, and I fell through the bed. Oh boy. The next day, this little freckly red hair, hippie, she gets on the phone call, and she calls a friend of hers. She's saying, da, da, okay, okay, da, 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 and she's smiling and laughing. And she's clapping her hands. She's, oh, okay, yeah, 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 yeah. So she's got excited, and she says with a little skinny finger, come on, come on, come on, come on, hide, 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 come on, come on. And we're going to go visit her friend, Danny, Dani. It was way across the country, and it was up in a forest area near the Hungarian border. It's just terrific, So we're driving there, and it was beautiful and all that scenery. So we get up there, and there's a great big banner across this little village. It was their celebration day, which is only one day a year, and there was people. They were shooting guns. There was horse riding. There was archery going on. There was a whole bunch of loud music. And this guy, Danny, it was his property that this shindig was being held on. And the whole town, the old people, the old bubbas, the Jeds, all the little kids, everybody was there. Everybody was having a real good time on this real plush lawn area. So this little freckly lady, she stayed and had a couple of those little plastic cups of wine with us. And Danny and me, after a while, he took me up and showed me his property. He had all these vegetables growing, these cucumbers and tomatoes and zucchinis and all these guys and everything. So he had this Lawrence Welk thing with him, and I believe it's called accordion. Well, as we were walking up, it was getting dark, and Danny was a husky guy. He had a black beard and curly hair. He also looked like somebody from the Biblia days. So he was telling me, I take this accordion to Africa, and I'm like king. He took that and started playing that accordion in these little African villages. And he says everybody was just following him, the whole village, and all the little kids, and they were all playing and laughing. And he says it was like Chinchins Bang Bang. How the hell he knew that, I don't know. At any rate, he told me about the real fun time he had in Africa. And I met a lot of people traveling. This guy takes the cake, without a doubt. He's number one fantastic traveler I've ever met. Because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to share and have a good festive time when you travel. And boy, did he. So, at any rate, we get up to this little building on top of this hill in Slovenia, in the forest, in the mountain area. And it was, I believe, late August. So it was real pleasant. It was a little bit warm. And Danny and I walk into this building, and there was a long table with a group of old people, and they were all staring with their eyes as big as Oreo cookies. And he walks in, and I walk in, and sits down in front of these people, and he starts talking to them. And then he starts out with the accordion, Alabama, with the banjos on the knee. And everybody starts clapping and having a good time. And I sat down next to this old guy. He was a little bit shaky and white. And after a couple of songs, then he started some local songs, and the people kind of were having a fun time. And some of them got up and started dancing in this little room. And Danny took a little break, and I talked to the old guy next to me, and he looked over at me, and he says, when you two walked in, I thought I had died, and the angels were coming for me. I said, don't worry, mister. Just be a good boy. They'll come for you. So I had another wine or two with these old guys. And then me and Danny, went back down this lawn area, and it was around dark 30 now. So we got back to the festives, and it was a big, long line. Everybody there was dancing. It was like we had just won the World Cup. Everybody was real happy, and these old ladies were giving me wine, and I didn't want to drink no more, so I was just pouring it over Danny's head, and then pouring them over my head, pouring them over the old ladies. So that night, Danny had a little cabin on his property off to the side, and it was homemade. It was homemade wood bed, the rocks, and the wood cabin, and he was almost finished with it. And I slept in that bed like a baby that night. Well, the next morning, Danny brought me some homemade yaya, some homemade eggs, and some prosciutto. Everything was from his land, and there was no neighbors anywhere. And he told me a story about finding 8 Bosnian refugees upstairs in a cabin he built. Can you believe I went a week ago and there was 8 from Bosnia here? A very hungry, scared people. So he gave him some, yeah, he gave him some eggs and some bacon. He gave him a little bit of cash, and off they went. He said he never saw him again. But they walked. They told him they had walked all the way from Bosnia there to northern Slovenia on the Hungarian border. Well, Danny, he says, we have bus that take you back to Slovenia, to Ljubljana. And I says, no, because I remember speaking to him the day before that night, and there is some kind of a city bus that takes you to the border of to Hungary and Slovenia. So I wanted to go back to Hungary the other way, which I did. Very good. Okay, okay. So he puts me on this city bus, and we greet each other. Says, "Hey, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun." I remember I only thing I brought was some dried pears, At least I brought something for him. But man, that guy really treated me like a king. And he told me some stories about Africa. And this guy was really a fan. It was just a lot of fun. He was a great traveler. I had a lot of fun listening to his stories. So I did make my way up to the Hungarian Slovenian border, and I made my way back the side roads, and that's another story, and that was a lot of fun. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this.
Don't like her. You quit waking me up. You grandson. You grandson.
All right, go ahead, ignore me. You'll be pampering at me when the money starts rolling in.